Why, hello there, everyone. Welcome to BunkaMania. On this day, I see clearly. Everything has come to life. It's true. It's true. BunkaMania is back here on Bunkazilla. Welcome to the show. I am Jeremy Graves, and welcome to this special episode 0, if you will, of the new incarnation of Bunkazilla. Of Bunkazilla's BunkaMania, I should say, but honestly, I'm so excited about this. I have wanted to talk about wrestling again for a very long time. Some of you who are watching this may be aware of past ventures I've been involved with. Some of you may not. Either way, there are a few things you should know about me, that being Jeremy Graves. I get very hyperactive, I have a lot of energy, and you guys are going to have a great time because I am joined here on BunkaMania by my cohort in crime. He is very much the Shawn Michaels when I am Marty Jannetty, and I'm saying that because it's a blooming fact. It is the one and only Iain Boulton.
Hello. Oh, this feels weird not being on the hosting side of things.
Oh, there you go. You get to chill out.
Right, I get to go along for the ride. It's like, I don't know where we're going, but I'm excited.
So many of you are probably wondering, why is BunkaMania returning now? Like, we were talking just before we started recording, and the last regularly scheduled BunkaMania was way back around 2018, around the time of WrestleMania 34, everybody. And quite honestly, the reason is just because we want to have fun talking about wrestling.
Indeed.
We don't necessarily know what direction we're going to be going in every week when it comes to this. There'll be some things that may be a regular occurrence and whatnot, but in general, the idea is just have fun talking about wrestling. Because that's what people like to do. Have fun talking about wrestling.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. I mean, BunkaMania was always kind of like one of the early shows that I always wanted to have with Bunkazilla when we launched this radio station back in 2018. And myself and Chris Allen, who pops up still on Bunkazilla stuff like Film Raw, Quiz Smash, and we hope to have him here on BunkaMania again soon as well. But yeah, I think workloads built up, and sometimes watching wrestling, in particular at that time, WWE was kind of like a.
I mean, there is also the other element that there is roughly, on average, like 20 hours of wrestling a week to watch a week minimum.
There's so much more hours of wrestling coming up now and in the future now with more shows from AEW and that coming up. So it's like, obviously, as a wrestling fan, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. But trying to keep a grip of everything and on a weekly basis is really, really hard. And there's only like 1 or 2 shows that I generally do watch properly, and I try to watch properly. And the others, it's just, I just haven't at the time. And it's not because I want to avoid watching the shows or I have no interest in them. I just have to read up on the results. I have to get the opinions of places like Bleacher Report or even some of the YouTube channels like Wrestle Talk, Cultaholic, all that sort of stuff. And basically, if there's a good match that I've missed, then I'll go out my way and try and find it. It's just, like I said, great time to be a wrestling fan. Incredibly hard to keep on top of everything.
Yeah, very much. And I think from my point of view, I like to try and watch what I can, but just realistically speaking, it's not very possible. The only show I will go out of my way to watch, also very spoiler free. I much prefer watching things spoiler free. That's just my jam on quite a lot of stuff. But I will go out of my way to stay spoiler free on AEW Dynamite. It's the one show I literally will watch every week. And if I don't get a chance to watch it, there better be a blooming good reason. Not the fact that, it's currently being preempted for a month and airing on a Friday night. So that gets a little bit awkward. But in general, to me, watching something spoiler-free is just a lot more enjoyable, or a lot worse in some cases, depending on what happens. But that's just how I've always enjoyed watching stuff. And when it comes to WWE, it's not that I don't watch it, because I sometimes try and watch pay-per-views, again, spoiler-free, so I can vaguely keep up with what's going on. But otherwise, like you said, you can keep up with loads of websites reporting on it, other channels and such. But also another thing as well is WWE basically uploads clips to their YouTube channel. So why watch an entire 3-hour episode of Raw when you can kind of watch it all in clip form over the course of 20 minutes, half an hour, quite frankly.
I will, Raw at the moment is kind of even quite unwatchable, even in its YouTube state, to be honest. I think the only 2 shows I generally try and make time to watch, NXT on a Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning. So I usually, a Wednesday like we're recording today, I'm up early before work. I sit down, I watch it. It's about 90 minutes worth of stuff. and I'm usually entertained by it. And the other show is currently SmackDown, and that's mostly because I'm really enjoying the Roman Reigns stuff. Anything else, if it's good, I'll try and keep watching it. If not, I might fast forward a bit. I'm mostly there for like the main event scene, really. But even with AEW, like I said, I do keep up with the results. I do check out some of the clips. Usually when the big pay-per-views come around, like Double or Nothing or Revolution, I am watching it. I am ordering the pay-per-view and watching it as well, just to sort of keep up with the zeitgeist, so to speak, with All Elite at the moment. Because it's like we're only like 2 weeks removed from Double or Nothing, and lots more stuff's going on that is like I just can't keep up with. Good stuff.
That's. And I mean, when you factor in other places as well, like, Japanese wrestling and such like that, or if you're someone that follows Lucha Libre as well, like there really is too much to watch. And in some ways, and obviously given, we're in a pandemic, it's kind of not the right thing to say, but in some weird way, not having independent wrestling happening currently has actually been a way for people to get up to date or really pick and choose what they want to watch. Because there was a point where if you literally tried to follow everything, all you're doing with your life is watching wrestling, which, we've both been there. I'm sure many people watching and hearing this have been in the same instance as well. But there comes a point where you need to go out for a walk.
Indeedy. And usually by the time you get to the end of it's like, again, like 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of NXT, 2 hours of AEW, even like I think 2 hours now of Dark. And then we've got Dark Elevation as well. Again, roughly 2 hours. So you've got 6 hours from AEW on a weekly basis, and nearly, and again 6 hours from WWE. 7 if you include NXT UK as well. And
don't forget about Main Event, WWE Main Event, a premiere program in the weekly calendar.
So that's now going up to that's 7, and now we'll go to 8. So it's just like there is nearly near coming up to 20 plus hours of wrestling, especially with the new shows coming up from AEW. Obviously, Rampage, which is launching very, very soon. Again, even more content, and Roku with New Japan Pro Wrestling as well.
Yeah, or just New Japan in general, like via the New Japan World Streaming Service and such. Like, there just comes a point where there is only so much you can watch. It's like watching anything. Like, if you've got a subscription to Amazon Prime, to Netflix, try to think of something else that there is in the world, like
Disney Plus.
Thank you. Like, there is so much.
Yeah, or obviously for US viewers and listeners, Peacock, which is obviously the place where you can watch all your WWE network at the moment in the US.
HBO Max as well.
Yeah. Hulu.
Hulu, like you said. Yeah, there is just so much. So, I think that's very much established sort of where we are at as wrestling fans. Because I also, I will say now, because some people, I talked earlier in the intro about like previous ventures. I used to do a show called Dropkick Radio, and I did that for like 5-6 years, I think it was, doing like interviews and all sorts of other stuff. So I've sort of done this I did that for quite a while, I should say. And that involved like watching pretty much every show, which at that point was Raw, SmackDown, and Impact, plus pay-per-views, plus some indie shows and whatnot here and there, going to shows as well. And, me and my buddies would talk about them, quite frankly. So I watched a lot of wrestling every week for a good number of years. And there just comes a point where I just want to enjoy stuff. I watch stuff to enjoy it. And I'm very much at a point where if I'm not enjoying it, which I will say now, it takes a lot for me to not like something. Like, it has to probably be the dirt worst for me to turn it off, which has only ever happened a couple of times, I think. I don't necessarily remember what of at this very moment, but it takes a lot. Like, here's a little bit of context. In what I will call, from many people's eyes, the heyday of TNA Impact being utter garbage, as someone once phrased it to me, I kind of liked it. Just because it was like, just take it for what it is. It's something different. It's an alternative.
I keep an eye on Impact now and then because obviously the crossover with AEW in a way. But yeah, I think the most exposure I ever had to TNA was probably back in like the late 90s, early noughties, when there was like the wrestling channel in the UK on digital satellite.
No. I need to stop you there, Ian. Please do not say the late 90s, because you made me feel incredibly old for a second.
I'm old too. I'm old.
But I mean, Wrestling Channel wasn't around then, though, was it? Was that not like 2003, 2004-ish, I want to say? Because there was it. there was the International Showdown event at Coventry Sky Dome. That was around 2005 because that was headlined by AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, I recall. Also had CM Punk v Samoa Joe in round 4 of their series of matches, as it were. The round that no one remembers.
I think it was definitely at some point around early noughties. I remember it was probably just after like the good old, and this is dipping into like the cartoon years of my youth, the CNX days.
Oh, there you go.
Where you get to watch a bit of Bebop, a bit of Outlaw Star, and then a Hong Kong Legends movie, and then something else, or maybe more Johnny Quest. I don't know. But no, there was the wrestling chart, and they were just constantly always going on with TNA. It's like the Jeff Jarrett era of it as well, with the 6-sided ring and all that sort of stuff. And occasionally I just watch it now and then and just kind of go, what is going on? This seems very weird. And this is at a time when I was probably more well versed in WWE of the 90s and early noughties before even contemplating the existence of any other wrestling franchise out there.
Yeah, well, you know, actually, that's actually a nice little segue to kind of what we were going to, in a way, sort of start off with properly. And that was, this is episode 0, as we're calling it, because we just want to give you guys a chance to hear us talk about wrestling, get to know us a little bit. And so we're going to be doing what I'm affectionately calling the BunkaMania Mystery Questions Box, which is we've got a whole bunch of questions. I wrote these out probably like a week ago. I shared Iain on a doc. He's added some. I've really not looked at this again. So we're basically just going to be picking random. We're going to be picking random numbers, see what the question is, and we're just going to give you our first honest answer that comes to our head and whatnot, and just talk about it.
Oh, the mystery's going to be fun.
Exactly. But I think given that we've gone back in time a little bit here, let's kind of do like a comic book thing here. What are our origin stories when it comes to becoming a wrestling fan? And I'll kick it off to give you a moment to think about this, because I probably just sprung this on you without any moment's notice. Right. But I go back to, I want to say it's the early 90s, because I grew up in North London, and I vividly remember going in a Tesco's in Boreham Wood and seeing a bunch of WWF figures, kind of like the proper old school ones that had like one move that they could do, like someone's arm would go, ah, and that was it.
Chop.
Literally, and the rest of the body was just quite literally. And I vaguely recall it being like Randy Savage, maybe the Bushwhackers were in that as well. There was like an old like blue ring you could buy. That was very much kind of my first exposure in a roundabout way to wrestling. But at that same time, in hindsight, that was also the time that SummerSlam 92 was taking place, which took place at Wembley Stadium. So I never went to that because I didn't really know, but I didn't have access to watch it, is what I should say. I didn't have much access to it. But I used to collect the sticker albums that came out, like cards and stuff like that. I loved all that stuff. I was heavily into it, but I could never actually properly watch it. It wasn't until probably around a few years, 5-6 years later, around 96, 97, when I had a chance to watch it. The only exception being that around maybe 93 or 94, by the way, one thing you're also going to come to realize, people, is I remember really random stuff. This is just the way I am. It's the way I'm wired. Please just accept it. And in the politest way, deal with it. But around 93 or 94, I also vividly remember going down to the coast with my parents to visit our nan, and she had the TV on, only just like regular 3 or 4 channels at that point. And on ITV, there was an episode of WCW Worldwide. I vividly remember this. I didn't know who anyone was because I didn't know WCW existed. I just knew it was a wrestling ring. I have no recollection what happened on the show, other than I think that Dustin Rhodes was on it. I think. I do not know for a fact. Exactly right. So I remember that, but otherwise it wasn't until late 96, maybe early 97, when I then kind of had access to Sky TV and I could watch something a bit more regularly. And I found Raw on, I guess it would have probably been one of the Sky channels at that point. I don't remember which one, but I'm just going to say Sky Sports for ease of conversation. Yeah. And then it was around probably later in 97 when I randomly discovered, after Cartoon Network would stop airing for that day at about 7 or 8 p.m. on a Friday night, that suddenly WCW Nitro came on.
Yep.
And at this point, I was heavily into buying VHS tapes, like in Virgin Megastore, HMV, mail away things, anything. I have such a massive VHS collection. And so I'm still watching older stuff while watching the current WWF stuff at the time. But then suddenly I see Kevin Nash on my screen and I'm confused because I don't know what the heck's going on.
It's like, but you were in WWF, Diesel. What are you doing
and then
here?
There's Scott Hall and whatnot, and it was kind of it was a weird culture shock, but I loved watching WCW. But 98 is probably when I really got in. I would say that's probably maybe my peak year at that point, or that's when I really got into like my peak of becoming a wrestling fan. 97, I was still massively into it, like a lot from what I watched. Like Bret Hart is easily one of like my all-time overall favorites. And I can elaborate more on that if that were to come up in a question or something at another point. But that's kind of the era where I really grew up and such. So from an origin perspective, that's where I come from in that in this side of things. So what about you? Because I mean, we sort of talked about age and stuff. Where do you begin?
I begin as previously stated in the episode, somewhere towards the tail end of the 90s, and mostly because we had Sky in the house. And I think there were just at random times, I think myself and my brother, we were watching Raw is War at the time. And it's like, we didn't necessarily click straight away with it. We were just watching it now and then. And I think the longer we kept watching it, was kind of like, oh yeah, this is quite entertaining. I mean, I remember seeing bits of WCW Nitro on Cartoon Network after it finished down. Because at that time, I think we were both into the Cartoon Network channel because that was showing great shows like Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, all that sort of stuff.
That whole what a cartoon phase.
It's the golden era, of Cartoon Network. I'd like to say,
Cow and Chicken, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I just found myself more, I think, connecting with WWF at the time, or WWE as it is now, more simply because of characters like Austin, like Taker. Even around that time, I think the mid card feud of Rock and Triple H and D-Generation X, there was just a lot there to really sort of sink it teeth into, and just the characters were captivating, and you just really, really enjoyed it. And I continued watching WWF, WWE. I'll just call it WWE, make it nice and easy. So everyone knows what
I think the way I put it is, when it comes to that time period, I just regard it as an intercommunicable phrase. Yeah, like whichever one you say, it means
it's
the same
right.
thing.
It's technically right. But yeah, I continued watching WWE for a good portion, probably up till about 2005, 2006 at the latest. And then I just drifted away. Other things were taking priority at the time, like uni. Even I was getting a lot more into anime and world cinema at the time. So yeah, wrestling just was more of an afterthought. And I only really got back into it in 2015.
Okay.
Essentially more with the network being more available in the UK. YouTube channels, again, like I mentioned, What Culture, which eventually soon sort of branched off. Some of the team went off to do Cultaholic, Wrestle Talk and stuff like that. And I think because in 2015, with the greater appreciation, I guess, of the storytelling aspect of it, because around the time when I was watching it, was young, is like, oh, this is like, it's pro wrestling. It's like the kayfabe element was incredibly strong. So if wrestlers were turning up, they were being themselves, dialed up to 11, all that sort of thing. Saturday Night Live, Live and Kicking, all that sort of stuff. But coming back to it in 2015, because people were now being, you see, this is how we told the story. We told it like this. We told it because we wanted this emotion and stuff like that. And appreciating a lot more of the physical aspect of it now. That's how I kind of really gelled with wrestling again. And yeah, it's just, I've been kind of focused on it ever since for the near 7 years that I've returned to it. Experiences highs, experience lows, and the madness in between. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, really. It's nothing spectacular, but yeah, just like I think like a good portion of probably kids at the time, 12 and up. Yeah, if you had Sky and you were watching like Sky Sports after the old round of football, oh look, there's WWE Raw.
Yeah, and then it'd be Yeah, I still remember like Raw used to be, because this is another thing, like Raw used to be on a Friday night.
Yeah,
This is actually something. It's actually something that's not really documented that much online, and it's something I would love to rectify myself at some point. But time, money, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the Monday Night War in the UK was a Friday night war. Like Nitro would air first, and then Raw would air later in the evening. Then eventually, like Thunder got added after Nitro. So then it was like 4 hours of WCW, and you would then get Raw as well. And if you had the VHS thing, and you knew how to like program it into a different channel, you'd be like recording hours of wrestling. And eventually, Raw got to live on a month. I think eventually Raw was broadcast live on a Monday, but it was kind of weird in some way. And then they still showed it on a Friday, but then SmackDown would air first on a Saturday morning, because it used to air on a Saturday night because Raw was on a Friday. It's so weird. I remember a lot of that stuff. It's really weird.
It was definitely very weird at the time. So yeah, you're right. It was a Friday night war, to be perfectly honest. And it's like, I think not many people probably older fans at the time who are well versed in obviously the WCW, WWE, Monday Night War at the time, probably going, oh yeah, they did all this on Monday, don't you know? But I think for us as youngsters, we were just kind of going, oh, wrestling's a Friday night, not a Monday night. This is a weird concept. What's going on? And I think you just
reminded me of something. I'll say it in a second, but it's really dumb.
But it's like you have like the evening versions. Obviously, you get your chair shots, you get all your really heavy hit moods, and then you watch like a highlights thing that's happening like on Saturday morning, and it's like the chair comes down, it's like you've got a freeze frame for like 4 seconds, or just cut to a random person in the audience going like that. It's like, oh no, him with the chair, I didn't see that, but him with the chair, believe it.
So 3 thoughts. Now the first one, when it came to them cutting away to audience members, this is how far too into wrestling I was. There was a period of time where Sky Sports would only use the same 10 or 12 cutaways. So I vividly remember getting home from secondary school to watch Royal Rumble 98 on the replay, because I couldn't watch it live and I wanted to watch the replay the night after. And I vividly remember them cutting away to a couple where a woman is just randomly going, woo! Like to imply, I don't know why, I just remember this. And like 3 or 4 years later, on SmackDown, they were still using that same cutaway on the Saturday morning edition.
It's like
so dumb. But
it's like, should we update this shot? Nah, a woman going, woo! It's got
literally.
It tells you what just happened in the ring. All right.
So dumb. But so you mentioned like going back to the whole Friday night aspect again. If you want an example of that being proven, watch Capital Carnage 1998, the UK pay-per-view that took place at the London Docklands Arena. I was there. But on commentary, JR on one recap bit, I think involving Steve Austin, literally says, here's what happened Friday night on Raw. And the actual lower third says Raw is War last Friday or yesterday evening or something. It was something like that. They literally acknowledged it. The other thing was, because young Jeremy was quite an impressionable person and didn't necessarily think that things could be pre-recorded when they say live on them. When WCW Nitro came up with its opening graphic and it said WCW Monday Nitro live, I genuinely thought in America, in like Chattanooga, Tennessee, or wherever the heck Nitro was emanating from, that it was genuinely Monday and it was live.
I will, going back to Capital Carnage, I remember that one fondly because that was the one which Sky heavily promoted with Vinnie Jones, because Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels had just come out and was doing lots of business at the UK box office. So you had like some of the soundtrack and just Vinnie Jones going, yeah, what? Okay, I'm off to this arena to take on Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and Kurt Angle. And I think I remember, I think it was a random promo that McMahon did during the show, Vince McMahon, and it was like just being insulted to the British. And I remember kind of doing a sort of like that in front of my TV, and I got told off for that. It's like, fuck you, McMahon. Ian, don't do that. Sorry.
One of my I don't know why I remember this, but I went with my dad, and I just remember Big Boss Man being involved in a match. I can't remember what one off the top of my head. Yeah. I just remember during that match, a chant of "You fat bastards" started being said in the audience. And I had such a good time saying that. And my dad just let me say it. It was great.
It's like, why fight it? Just let it out.
Exactly. So here is another dumb memory from Capital Carnage. This is prime Jeremy remembering dumb stuff here now, folks. But I remember we were near the in the the Docklands Arena. It wasn't a small arena, but as you got in the upper tiered bit going towards the back, you naturally got closer to the ceiling. And I remembered where I was having signs with me because I wanted to have a sign appear on TV and stuff.
Yeah.
And we were so high up in the arena that when I held a sign up, it hit the roof. Basically, or it hit a stanchion or something, or a lowered bit of the ceiling, and I couldn't actually hold up my sign. I remember being gutted about that. So on that note, talking about random memories, let's go to random questions, Iain. So Iain, pick a number between 1 and 33.
Let's go with the birthday. 12.
12. Annoying chants. Chanting in the crowd. What are some of our annoying pet peeves when it comes to chanting? There are a menagerie that you could choose from, quite frankly.
Yeah. I think the ones, and it's mostly because of it's because I just find it very frustrating when obviously audiences are not enjoying what they're seeing on a stage, and they're entitled to it, but it really detracts in a very badly. It's the CM Punk chants, and I get it. I get CM Punk is widely considered as a great wrestler. I've watched a few of his matches. Again, it's when I was away from wrestling, I completely missed the Summer of Punk, all that sort of stuff. But
really?
But I watched Money in the Bank, the Punk Cena match. That is amazing. So I do appreciate Punk's sort of contribution to obviously wrestling at that time. But the whole sort of thing of just shouting CM Punk because you don't like something, I don't know. I just think sometimes it can be a bit disrespectful to the wrestlers in the ring, because sometimes if they're doing a storyline that they know isn't great, it's not necessarily their choice of the story. But again, it's there are very good athletes in wrestling, especially in WWE, for example, and I feel like if you really want to support them or back those sort of athletes, you just shouting CM Punk, who at that time, I think I came in just as he had left, was just kind of, all right. It's I'm not sure what they're expecting to happen in a way. I mean, the wrestling crowds are entitled to do what they want, but it just sometimes I just find that just a bit. I find that just a bit kind of mean-spirited, I guess, I suppose. And also one of the other one is what it's I appreciate Austin made that famous, and at the time it was great, but sometimes just the what side of things is just, it's good little nice catchphrases just taken to the nth degree, and they are just it's kind of they're butchered to all high hell by just overuse by the crowd. And that's just me. And don't get me wrong, both, I mean, the chants are there for good reasons, and the crowds can use those chants, but they're not my favorite ones.
I agree with you. The what thing in particular, it's what's the way to put this? The what chant was a great thing, and the fact that single word has basically polluted wrestling for the better part of a decade and a half now, I think it is. When was it first used? 2002? In fact, maybe during the invasion, 2001. So
I think it was definitely during the Austin Hill run.
So 20 years ago then, basically. Yeah. Oh god, that's horrifying to think about. But anyway, but the what chant, I think it still can be used in a good way, but it's when people are clearly doing it just to try and put people off. Because I come from an acting and musical theatre background as well. Yeah. So for me, it just comes across as effectively heckling, which people can do to a degree, but that's the way I feel about it.
I mean, if you're kind of doing it against a bona fide heel, and the crowd love to wind the heel up, great, fine, perfect, do it. But it's I've seen it used before when wrestlers who are not necessarily too confident on the mic, or they haven't got the best promos out there, or are not all basically, sometimes English might not be their first language as well. And just because they are trying their hardest to perform on a mic, and the crowd, instead of trying to be supportive or try and go along with it, are just shouting "what" after every sentence is, again, it's like you said, it feels like heckling, but it also just feels like, it's like, no, we're not going to support you. And then, but then the irony is, well, if that wrestler ever got released, people go, oh, but they were brilliant. It's like, yeah, but you bloody heckled them. It's like, what? You wanted to derail their momentum by shouting what?
Yeah. So the chant I'm gonna say, all I will ask before people judge me and hate me forevermore is, let me explain. Give me at least 20. Give me at least 20 seconds.
Explain first, and then say what the chant is.
Yeah. So with this chant, it's something that so it is a sign of appreciation, and I think the chants that show appreciation should never go away. But I think there is a time and a place when certain chants should be utilized and perhaps should be thought of in a more, what's the way to put this? People will jump on a bandwagon when something is chanted, but I think some people, it's the equivalent of reading the room. I'll put it that way. And there are lots of times when I have been at a show or I'm watching something where this chant has started and it actually takes me out of the moment. Okay. Because there is a point, not necessarily where I don't think it has reached this point, but it's at a point where I feel like you could do this later or do it at the end, like show appreciation for the entire thing. Yeah. And this chant I'm talking about is, "This is awesome." There are so many moments, I think, where that chant has just been overused. I mean, there was a point in TNA Impact where someone chanted it after 20 seconds, and it's like, dude, let them do a move.
I think that's a very fair observation, because half the time it's like, even with the current modern day Thunderdome era that we're currently going through WWE, it's like most matches get the "this is awesome" thing, and it's like, yeah, they're all right, but they're not like legend. Is like they're not going to like, my God, this is the greatest wrestling match ever.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, literally.
Yeah. I think
sorry, I appreciate that might just be grumpy Jeremy or something coming out, but that's just something I have felt, and it's partly, I mean, this isn't a knock on the people who were going to TNA Impact, because I've been to some tapings at the old Impact Zone in Orlando as well, so it's a fun environment to be in. But I literally remember on one Impact, like a minute into the match, people started chanting "this is awesome," and I just, one of the few times I went, dude, come on, like let them do something. I appreciate you're enjoying it. Are you really? But come on, there's a degree of read the room. That's more what I mean about it.
Yeah. No, I get where you're coming from, and no, I don't think that's. I don't think I don't think your view on it is wrong. I think, it's like use it at the right time, and sometimes with wrestling, even when the crowd noises are being manipulated as well. Yeah, "this is awesome" can get easily overused. And
it's like, here's a good way to sum it up. I'm not saying, for example, put it into the equivalent of Room 101. I'm saying put it in the waiting room.
Okay. It's like, you're not in trouble yet, but hold your horses, son.
Exactly. Right, Ian, pick another number between 1 and 33.
5.
Number 5. Oh, wow. What is the worst debut of a wrestler, in our opinion?
Oh, I mean, it's like, I saw this on the sheet of questions, and I generally was drawing a blank, because it's like, okay, there's very infamous ones there. I mean, obviously you got Gobbledygooker from Survivor Series and the Giant Egg. But then it's like, I'm kind of again, it's like trying to figure out a good, bad debut, and I can't think of anything worse recently than Retribution.
Fair, yeah, very fair.
It's like you got this band of wrestling anarchists that just want to cause chaos. It's like, we don't follow the rules. We're going to turn up. We're going to chainsaw the ropes and all that sort of stuff. And then two episodes later, Michael Cole shouts, "They've signed to Raw." It's like, so what? They're just going to Yeah, it's been well documented. Retribution was a clusterfuck of an organization of a stable over the last less than 12 months. They're not even a stable anymore. They're gone. They're done. but it's like on paper, it's a great idea. It's a cool idea. It kind of harkens back to like some of that Attitude Era stuff, but oh god.
No, I hear you on that. I hear you. So. Yeah. I'm going to go back to... Don't ask me why I'm pulling this out from somewhere, but it's just come to mind.
All right.
Let's go back to 2001.
All right.
The Invasion.
Yes.
There's a lot of things I could pick from The Invasion, but the first one that's come to mind is how Diamond Dallas Page was debuted as a stalker of The Undertaker's wife.
Yep.
Being an avid WCW fan, I mean, look, I was so much of a WCW fan that on various forums and various circles on the internet for a good few years into like the mid to late 2000s, my username was WCW Forever. That literally, I'm not that's
your picture allegiance.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So from someone who avidly watched WCW and really liked Diamond Dallas Page's work and still like the guy to this day, given DDP Yoga and whatnot, how that's changed my life. That's a debate for another day. But just him going from being the people's champion to a stalker.
Stalking Taker's wife at the time. Sarah at the Sarah was her name. But it's like it just doesn't make sense. It's like even when you're looking back at when I was like doing a lot of the documentaries when I started watching the network and watching things like the Monday Night War side of things and how Diamond Dallas Page was this beloved people's champion of that brand, and it's just it makes no sense why he turns up going, I really like Taker's wife. And just it's just that close. It's like that close up. It's that close up where he takes it off and he's just standing there going, "It's me, it's DDP."
And that's the thing as well. The easiest thing they could have done, if they would be willing to actually try and think of something better with the Invasion, was People's Champion v People's Champion, Rock v DDP. Now to counterpoint my own counterpoint, which is a weird thing to say in itself.
You've recounted yourself.
Exactly. Because I remember in school and college and stuff, there were some people who were big wrestling fans who did not know what WCW was. So when that episode, because they never had access to Cartoon Network TNT or whatever, they could get hold of WWF for whatever reason. Probably partly because it was on Channel 4 at that point as well, to a degree. But there was a point where WCW guys came in and some of my friends didn't care. Because they're like, who are these guys? I don't know who they are. And like even like the whole episode, that the final Nitro simulcast episode of Raw, they literally had no idea why this was so significant. Because most of the time, contrary to what WCW would do sometimes, Raw never mentioned Nitro. Or very, very rarely and kind of, maybe a bit subtly mentioned the competition at times. So to them, it didn't make sense, really. So there was this element where I can understand why the idea of People's Champion v People's Champion would not fly, because some people wouldn't care about it, but you could make people care about it. It wouldn't be that difficult. But yeah, so there you go.
It's fair. I mean, I think for the wrestling fan, when like the Invasion and the purchase of WCW happened, everyone's going, "Oh, great, we're going to see Hogan, Goldberg, all that sort of stuff over there," and I think not many people were aware at the time the silliness of contracts and all that stuff going on. So it's kind of like you have your dreams and it just never lived up to those expectations. Really, it's kind of funny when you look at things like pop culture, popular media today, in terms of like how when every Marvel thing comes out, you're kind of going, oh, it's going to be great because I bet this person's going to turn up and this person's going to do that. And we're going to have the first ever look at this person from Fantastic Four. Even though they haven't cast a Fantastic Four yet, we're going to see this person from Fantastic Four. And then when it doesn't happen, and say, well, it's like this failed my expectations. It's like, this was never going to meet your expectations.
Exactly. It's like when people just expect WrestleMania to be every single match is going to be 5 stars. It's like, no, it's never that. No disrespect intended, but it's just that thing of realistically speaking, there is no show that every match is going to be 5 stars. That is just being realistic, because logic dictates you need to build up. I remember, this is a random tangent, but sod it, go for it. There was a shoot interview that CM Punk and Samoa Joe did for Ring of Honor as part of their straight shooting DVD series many years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how ROH had developed since its first show. And Joe and Punk talked about how there was more of a structure. Because when Ring of Honor debuted, it was effectively like a super independent or super indie, if you will, because ECW had gone at that point. So it was RF Video who owned them at the time, or in the early stages. They needed like a replacement for ECW in their subscription videotape stuff.
Yeah.
And so they developed Ring of Honor effectively to be like a super indie that would have names you recognize, but also show you the best indie talent out there. A super card, if you will, where every match was basically everyone trying to top each other and put everything out there. But there comes a point where you need a structure to build up through a show so that you can get people hyped for a main event and not necessarily overshadow it. Sometimes something can happen and a match earlier far exceeds expectations or just wipes the floor with everything else, or because you need to have the world title match go on last because it's tradition, WrestleMania 18, it doesn't necessarily flow as well, for example. Or it's just at that point you can't match it. Because when you've just seen The Rock and Hogan, you know, and then you follow it up with a world title match, which, how do you come back from that?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good example. I mean, Rock Hogan was just, I mean, the match itself is very basic, but it was the moment, it was the crowd, it was like just small moments. It's just like that lengthy stare off between Hogan and Rock just at the start of the match, and you're just hearing the crowd getting louder and louder. It's like how can you top that? How can you top that on a after an event like, after a match like that, and you've got the undisputed championship between Jericho and Triple H, both great wrestlers, but they weren't capturing the magic like Rock and Hogan. Yeah,
there is like, it's a debate I've had sometimes with a few people, including like on old shows and stuff, where it's like, should the world title match always go on last? And in general, I'm of the mindset that the world title should be the most important thing that everyone is aiming for. To me, that's like, if you're not aiming for it, why are you even in this? Like, involved in the sport and whatnot. But I think there is also a time where logic dictates, if there is some, like, for example, why would you put an unsanctioned match on during a show?
Yeah.
You would make it be the last thing. Because at that point, it's like, right, you know, it was like, what was it? One of the recent AEW pay-per-views. There was like a lights out match thing. In fact, it was probably the exploding barbed wire death match thing. It's like, right?
That was a sanctioned match. I think the first Moxley Omega match at Full Gear was lights out.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the one, wasn't it? Yeah. And it was just that thing of like, right, you know, now the show has like ended. And now we're getting like
all finished.
Yeah, literally. Like, you know, the show's effectively ended. So now you're getting like something else, but this doesn't go in the record books and whatnot. I think that is all right. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But the world title should be the thing people aim for.
Yeah, I like, especially with unsanctioned matches, I like that sort of edge to it of basically say, right, whatever happens now is going to happen. Deal with it. We've got a ref. Their goal is to simply count or acknowledge a tap out. That's it. Good luck, everyone. We're all going to need it. In that sort of way. But no, I mean, it's like most times, the world title should be the last thing on the card. But I think sometimes when storytelling calls for it, you may need to shift it around a little bit. And probably Rock Hogan was probably one of those events where, maybe it could have been the finale, and it might have got an even bigger reaction than it did. But I can understand why fans can get upset that certain titles get open up first. It's like with Royal Rumble at the start of this year. We opened up with McIntyre versus Goldberg, and it's like, well, it's a hot start. It's not going to necessarily be a hot start. It's just going to be a 5-minute quick power match, and then we're going to carry on, and then it gets dovetailed by, I think it was Reigns Owens last man standing at that stage.
Where Reigns got handcuffed and couldn't get out.
Yes. And Kevin Owens got run over by a golf buggy.
There you go.
Yes.
You see, it's interesting you mentioned Rumble. Sorry to cut you off, because I think that's an example where the actual event dictated that a match had to be moved somewhere. Because when you've got two 60-minute plus Rumble matches to get through, there comes a point where you can't really have the world title match on last, because the Royal Rumble is the main theme of the show. So in that instance, I don't mind if it goes on first, but obviously as soon as you've got two world titles, it confuses things. It's like, I don't want to mention his name because, reasons, but Alberto Del Rio, like the year he won the Rumble and he went to face Edge at Mania, which I think, if I remember correctly, I think Edge retired the next night, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But that match was first on the card. And I remember at the time, there were people who were like, why is the Rumble winner on first? It's meant to be the main event. And some people argued, well, it's still one of the main events. It's like, no, main event means you're on last.
Last, yeah. No, they did it with WrestleMania 35 in New York. It's like it was Brock Rollins, and Rollins won the Rumble that year. So, but there was kind of like but I kind of like the way they spinned it of Brock going, no, I'm either going on first or I'm going on last. I'm not pussyfooting around in the middle. That's how Heyman was.
I was there. I've just remembered I was there.
Yeah, that's the one you were at. That's the one. That was the one you were at.
The reason I was like looking really weird, I'm thinking 35. We've just had 37. What happened at 36? Oh, it was empty. 35. Yeah, I was there. that was my thought process. Yeah, and do you know what? I can tell you for a fact as well. In the stadium, I mean, I was up like upper tier, like in the lower part of the upper tier. But when that happened, and it's like, nope, this is happening right now. We were hyped in that stadium. It's like, oh, what? Now? Sure, let's do it. Come on.
All right, fine. Let's start it off. And then obviously within about 15 minutes, Rollins gets his belt. It's a good match.
The end.
I like that match. It's a good little match. And I think I remember even watching it like non-spoiled, because I watched it like the day after the event and not knowing how it started. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna start with the Universal title. I was like, all right, let's do this.
I'll tell you what, that was a long day in that stadium.
Yeah,
like legit. I got there for like the kickoff stuff as well, because I thought this might be the only. I mean, ironically now, given what happened to the world, but this might be the only WrestleMania I go to, so I'm going to make the most of it.
Good old 2-hour kickoff.
So here is a story from that show for you. The main event was the 3-way women's match. I didn't see it, not because I didn't want to, because, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, maybe some people watching here and this will be aware, but locally, the show was advertised to be done by 10 p.m. Because, quite frankly, the New Jersey transit system, because it's not actually in New York, it's in New Jersey. That's a debate for another day. But the New Jersey transit system made it known publicly, we've been told the show is finishing at 10. All public transport will finish at midnight. The main event's bell to start the match happened at about 10 to 12. Like, look, I vividly remember this. So I was there with a buddy, and I said to him, I want to hear Joan Jett perform Bad Reputation and Ronda comes out. Like, I want to see the entrances, then we will skedaddle and somehow get down from the upper tier to the bottom of the stadium to the train station. We did it, and literally, I was standing in the train by the door. I heard the match finish, and I have never seen so many people running down a staircase from an upper tier. Literally, I'm not even joking. There were so many people, and then as soon as that started happening, doors closed, we went. And then the other bad part of that story, which I thankfully didn't have to contend with, there was a torrential rainstorm for the next 3.5 hours. There were no Ubers or taxis at the stadium because everyone thought it was finishing at 10 p.m.
Yeah, I was
were literally stranded.
I was just about to ask that. It's like, so basically that meant no actual public transport, no taxis. So
nothing.
Wow. I mean,
it was a cluster.
I can't really imagine that being a thing for a UK event. Not generally just a wrestling event, but just say an event in general, because there's always like the late night taxis. Yes, you get a bit more expensive, but it's really weird.
Yeah, because the thing to remember as well is like it's a Sunday night, and so there's the idea. I don't remember the entire aftermath of it, but it was something like that if the New Jersey transit system were going to keep the trains open for longer, WWE would need to pay the overtime cost. But because they had never actually said to them the show was going to run long, they just naturally assumed, okay, cool, we'll finish at midnight as normal. Because if they weren't told it was going to probably, if they weren't told, if they weren't told, because people don't know it's like an 8-hour show, pretty much. Then they don't know. But the dumb thing is, I remember I was on the train station going to the stadium, and of course, because everyone from around the world travels there, I naturally found a group of British fans because that's just what you do. And I was talking to them, and I said to them, "Oh, by the way, like, are you aware like this show's probably going on till like midnight, but the trains are going to finish at like 11:30, 12 o'clock?" And they literally didn't believe me. And I said to them, "Look, I'm honestly not joking here. I am leaving. If that main event is not on by 10 to 12, I am leaving. I am pelting it out the stadium." And like, just told you what happened. So I've got no idea if they actually got caught in the storm or not, or whatever, or what happened. But literally, no, unless you knew and you were on the internet and you had heard scuttlebutt about it, you would not know there was going to be no trains, no nothing. On that note, pick a number.
It's like, now we've talked about the transport system. Pick a number. Let's go 24.
24, a good WrestleMania number. Actually, you know what? I like this question as well. Good job, past Jeremy. most impactful entrance theme music.
Oh, I mean, I feel like there's clearly one here. I think
go on,
and it's got, and I feel like it's got to be Taker's music.
Okay,
and it's simply, it's like I think there's no other theme or it's like even entrance that kind of commands everyone's attention for that amount of time it takes Undertaker to get to the ring. But
I mean, look, mate, let's be fair. Limp Bizkit's Rollin' would do that. When he's coming out on the motorbike,
American Badass.
No, there was Rollin', there was American Badass from Kid Rock as well. It's like,
No. Classic Taker. As well. Well, I'm clearly going for. Yeah.
I mean, in WrestleMania 9, he kept rolling technically, but that's a debate for another day.
Yeah, true. But no, it's like I feel like the Undertaker's theme is just so iconic and it's very, and like I said, it's just like the moment you hear the gong go, the lights go out, you know what's about to happen. It's a moment that I think very few quite a good portion of wrestling fans have been able to experience, and I count myself as very, very lucky to be able to see that, because I think the first time I went to a proper WWE show, I went to a taping of Raw. It was late 2015. It was Taker versus Wyatt. It was basically the Wyatt family versus Brothers of Destruction. And it was kind of like, I don't think anyone was, I kind of thought, it's like, it's a show in England. You're not going to see The Undertaker in a way. And the last bit where it's just a ring punch for all between the Wyatt family and the Brothers of Destruction, and the dong just went off. I think I remember, because I was there with Christian. I think we both literally lost our minds, because after so long, and just as a fan, or just knowing that character for so long, just for perhaps maybe the only time you may see this person in the flesh in a ring, even though we were kind of halfway up the stairs in the Manchester Arena. We were way away from the ring, but it's just that moment of, he's actually in the building. Shit, this is going to be awesome. No, I just can't think of any. I just can't think of any other impactful themes other than Taker, really. I mean, yeah, you've got the iconic ones like Austin and Rock and all that sort of stuff. But I think maybe I lean towards Taker a bit more, because obviously that's an entrance theme I've been able to experience in person at an event. So yeah, I can imagine there are different answers out there. I think it's more. I guess it's probably more to do with that personal connection, possibly.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's also how you regard impactful, because you could say impactful of, if you hear the start of it, like, you mentioned Austin there, the glass breaking.
Yeah,
like when
absolutely.
that glass breaks, you instantly know what that means. It's like something like that. I mean, the one that I will probably go with, just because it's ironically, because I quoted it at the start of the show, but Edge's theme.
Yeah.
There is just something that when you hear that, you think you know me, and it kicks into the Alter Bridge song, just the way that the way it's edited together and stuff, it's so good.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like even with WrestleMania this year, with Edge in the main event against Reigns and Bryan, it's like the moments like it's like a amazing atmosphere when that song goes off, especially when it was in front of a crowd for the first time in a long time, and you could just see Edge just really excited about it, just running up and down the stage, just real full of adrenaline. And then obviously it's the things like that and the fireworks going off. It's like that's a great song as well. I think that's a great entrance theme. I mean,
in terms of other impacts, though, I'm just trying to think. Sorry,
how would you define impact? As in like a personal impact or like an atmosphere changing impact?
I would say the latter. I mean, because at that point, if it's a personal thing, that's kind of almost like what's your favorite theme. But impactful, I think, is like it changes the mood of the situation. Like you mentioned, the Undertaker's gong going off, like that. When that gong goes off, it's like the equivalent of people going, "Oh man!"
Well, it's like one of the things like around 2014, 2015 sort of areas. Again, even though it wasn't particularly, they probably weren't really booked well at the time. Wyatt family, the moment you just see Bray on the screen, just going, "We're here," and then everyone just takes out the mobile phones to create the little fireflies effect. That's kind of cool. And being in the audience. Yeah, and being in the audience for a couple of those, it's kind of like, oh yeah, this is quite cool. This is fine. But no, yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at impactful in a way. It's just the thing that really just changes the atmosphere. I mean, yeah, I think there's not many other ones I can think of. Well, there's Walter when he was in NXT UK. And I remember being in the audience during Takeover Blackpool 1. Yeah, it's the first takeover in Blackpool because they had the UK Championship tournament, and then this is the first one. And he debuted in just after the main event, and it was just like the da dun da dun, and it's like what? And then just looking,
Jaws coming to get you.
Yeah, and then just looking to the stage, and you just see this imposing Austrian standing in army gear. It's like, oh shit!
Yeah, literally. See, you summed it up right there. Impactful is what gives you the equivalent of that oh shit moment. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
There you go. So pick another number now. Between 1 and 33.
Let's go 20.
20. Which of the big four means more to you? Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series.
Rumble. And I think simply because Rumble's like one of my favorite specialty matches. I think it's like most fans like major specialty matches because of that sort of atmosphere of anything can happen. Obviously the stakes are big. You get to go to WrestleMania in the main event, and usually most times it is a way to kind of say this is going to be a big guy. This is this guy's year to be a star and so forth. And yeah, sometimes it's not necessarily panned out well. I mean, the last couple of years, Edge to this year, McIntyre last year, so on Rollins. It's kind of like, yeah, take it or leave it. Who won it? Who won it the year before Rollins? That was Nakamura. Nakamura was Nakamura was a good moment.
Because that was the era it was both Asuka and Nakamura, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, both of them in like big main events. And then it's like you go a little bit further back before Nakamura, it was Orton. It was like, but then again, Orton was the one who eliminated Roman Reigns. And I think at that stage we were all at anyone but Reigns. it was that mindset. It was like, please not Reigns. Yay, you win. It's fine.
I still remember that moment where one of the Rumbles where Reigns won. I can't remember how many he's won, but then like when the Rock came out to endorse him and the fan just boo, and the Rock's face is priceless.
It's like, are you saying boo or yay? No, they're saying boo.
Are you booing me or him? But yeah, I do agree with you, Rumble, and it's the way I always look at it is WrestleMania is the finale of the year. Like the WWE calendar is effectively the Raw after WrestleMania through to WrestleMania. That is the way it works out when you think of like a year-long cycle. And the Rumble is the start of like that final leg if you will. It's like that's the start of like we're building up to the crescendo, the cliffhanger here. This is what everything. This is where it. Not to coin a phrase from WrestleMania 20, but it's where it all begins again. Basically, literally. Good tagline, I guess. But yeah, I agree with you on Rumble, and also just because Rumble is also something very different. And I know there's always this thing of, it only happens once a year. It's like, well, yeah, a lot of stuff can only happen once a year, but it's the way it's only once a year because it is so vastly different.
Yeah, because you have all these different types of battle royales. I mean, AEW have their Casino Battle Royale, which is kind of like a Royal Rumble, just in groups, which is all right. But there's just something so simplistic and beautiful about just that 30 men, one every 90 seconds or 2 minutes over the top rope, both feet touch the ground, and the audience obviously getting psyched for it with this count, with the buzzer going off for the 10, 9, 8, all that sort of stuff. And even when you have the returns and the debuts, it's like obviously Edge year before this year, 2020, coming back was amazing. Even as like the debut of AJ Styles in 2016, which was quite amazing. Obviously, if you knew who he was. And I mean, at that time, I kind of had an idea who he was. It was like, he actually is here. Cool. But then obviously WWE production team decided to focus on Range's perplexed face for 5 seconds. It's like, who is this person? No, that's Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
they had to re-upload the clip.
Yeah, I mean, it happened with Edge. Like, I remember when he came back at that Rumble you just mentioned, and they missed the first spear.
Yeah.
And it was like the internet was on at that point. The internet was on fire. Like, it had gone from being jubilation to fire in the space of like a minute. It was quite impressive. So pick another number, Ian. Just first thing that comes into your mind. Go.
10.
Number 10. Here we go. Best wrestling event we've attended.
Okay.
I've been to a lot of wrestling shows.
You've been to a lot. I've been to a small number. I would probably say the most memorable one is probably the UK Championship tournament back in 2017.
Blackpool, right?
Blackpool, yeah, it was a 2-night event.
Michael Cole's finest commentary performance.
Yes, where Michael Cole was allowed to do what he wanted to do all these years. And basically was WWE Universe's introduction to Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's like it was a getaway for myself and my girlfriend at the time. And yeah, it was a nice audience. There was a nice buzz about it. It was just the nice, even the ballroom setting, the nice sort of intimate kind of setting of the event as well. And just, it was like, yes, this is British wrestling, but with a little bit of a WWE kind of taster. And you had some really fun matches. I mean, definitely on the second night, like the finals night, you had an impromptu match between Neville, now Pac, and a certain Tommy End as well, who has just suddenly reappeared on the independent scene.
Go figure. No way.
Go figure. Go figure. But no, it's like and even just crowd really get into things like Tyler Bates sort of waving to the camera, just saying, "Give us a wave, Tyler." There we go. Wolfgang, even Trent Seven with his sort of towel and kind of like, it's like real sort of, it's like was bizarre kind of like, it's like, is this kind of like attractive alluredness? No, it's just me in a towel. All is in the ring. But no, it was like a nice combination. It was 2 nights of entertaining wrestling. I actually kind of, we on the first night we had like a meet and greet, which we met Finn Balor as well, which was quite cool. So and Balor signed some stuff. So there was Balor. It's like it was just a really nice event all around. And I think it's the first time that I was at an event where the cameras literally did pick me up quite clearly. And every so often.
Oh, yes, they did.
Oh, yes, they did. I'm on the WWE network for $9.99. And there's a couple of times.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor, no. Not a proper endorsement. But if you're keen to try and find me, I am in that crowd, especially on the first night, because we were myself and my girlfriend were second row from the front of the ring. And then the second night we were in the main sort of hard cam audience, just slightly a bit further back. But there is I think if you look at one of the recaps, and it's all about getting to the final, like through adversity and stuff like that. There was a shot of me quite very clearly pumping my fist in the air, just having a whale of a time. And yeah. No, the funny thing about that first evening was we were sat behind a father and some kids who were clearly mistaken of who they thought they were going to see there, because they had kids dressed up like Cena and stuff like that, and there's like the kids and the dad just didn't give two monkeys about what's going on. I was trying not to uber swear there, and they just didn't care about what was going on. I guess that's like a pet peeve. I guess it's like you're there to watch the wrestling, you're there to enjoy the show, and you're there either just looking at your phone, or, as we have both experienced, seeing a show together, talking about how much money you've made at work today. And it's like, really, you've wasted nearly 70 odd quid for tickets to get here, and all you can talk about is, oh yeah, I made lots of money, and now my Porsche runs like great. I can't do a proper London accent. I'm sorry. I'm trying to recreate the annoyance.
Iain, you'll never recreate that. To give context to people, it was a Raw taping, because we were doing Raw and SmackDown, and it was basically, we had a group of guys behind us. It's, if you can imagine, this is kind of for anything, like a concert, a theatre performance, anything. It's the definition of 4 friends out for a good time. One of them gets a bit too drunk, and then another one progressively gets a bit too drunk. And quite frankly, they just turn into utter dicks. And then their friends don't really do anything about it. And ultimately, those people basically just ruin your enjoyment. But you just stick with it, try and have a good laugh. But then the nice part of the story is we never saw them again. One of them fell down the stairs trying to climb up them, and we had a good time at SmackDown the next night.
Yes, we did.
We got to see promotional build for Dolph Ziggler v Shinsuke Nakamura at a pay-per-view. Only to later that night in the dark match, see Shinsuke Nakamura v Dolph Ziggler.
I can't remember what else is. No, they were building towards the House of Horrors match at Payback, weren't they?
I don't even remember what pay-per-view it was at that point. I remember we got like a 6-man tag match that featured both AJ Styles and Baron Corbin. I seem to remember.
Oh no, this is the one where I think it's part of it was when it was Jericho and Owens the start of their run together, and I think it's the one where I think it's Jericho kind of jumps into Owens's arms at the end saying, "We won!" in that sort of way. So I mean, I can't remember much of SmackDown. I really can't. I think
we had really good seats though. We were kind of like upper tier front row, kind of, if you imagine, like diagonal to one of the ring posts. So it was almost like an ECW 1999 camera angle, just a higher view. It was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I like the kind of side of things for the O2 or stuff like that. If you get really high up in the O2, that's when you go, oh no, if I fall, I'm going to be falling forever.
Well, that's the thing. There's high up in the O2 and there's right up at the O2.
It's basically sheer vertical drop if you just so much as go the wrong way. So it's kind of like...
Which for us, being men of exceedingly great height, it is even worse. You know, people can't appreciate that.
Especially if you don't like heights either, like myself. It's like, oh no.
Oh no.
And you kind of try not to fall into people. It's like, I don't want to knock anyone over or fall them or just push them off the balcony. This would be terribly inconvenienced.
So you're walking around looking like you're Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid because you're trying not to fall over.
Yeah,
or something. So I've been to so many wrestling shows, like be it independents, WWE, like WCW stuff. The one I'm going to pick, and it's partly because we were talking about my experience of WrestleMania a bit earlier, but the night before that WrestleMania, Madison Square Garden, it was the ROH New Japan G1 Supercard.
Oh, yes.
That show, like to see a show at Madison Square Garden alone was great, but just that show was on another level. Also, I got to see the entire shenanigans involving Enzo and Kaz, which was even more amusing.
Oh, this is like the year after they'd both been kind of kicked out.
Basically, yeah. So they turned up and did their thing. And it was that wonderful thing that where I was like, sort of, again, lower upper tier of the garden, as it were, or the upper section of the lower tier, I should say. Yeah. And there was a point where there's like, you got a ceiling above you, and then they had like some TV screens hanging down. So we could see the broadcast, and the fact that the commentators didn't know what was going on, even though we were watching it like down in front of us as well. It was really surreal. But that double main event of Kota Ibushi and Tetsuya Naito, followed by Jay White v Okada, and Okada winning the IWGP title. I never thought I would see an IWGP championship change. It was just one of those moments where it was just such a great show. Just really, really good. And also, Marty Scurll at the time did not win the ladder match to win the ROH title, which he really should have done because he was over as heck. But that's a debate for another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could probably say something else where I thought about it for longer without being off the cuff. But that's the one that springs to mind, though. G1 Supercard. I got to see both Great Muta and Jushin Thunder Liger in the same Battle Royal match.
Awesome.
So
quits in.
There you go. So Iain, pick another number. First one that comes to mind.
27.
27. Okay, this is an interesting one. I'm surprised I wrote this, but I don't know why. Commentators that, for whatever reason, just don't agree with us. So what's a commentator that just gets on your wick? You don't know why. You don't really have a problem with them, but for whatever reason, you just don't. You're just not a fan. It doesn't click. It doesn't gel.
I mean, I get for a period of time why JR and the King were a good double act, but my God, the King grated on me at times, especially during the Poppies era. Whereas it's just like every time like a female superstar was there, it was all about just the King ogling her, and it's like because I was young at the time, I didn't really think much about it, but now obviously how society and all that has moved on and become better because we've identified those sort of incorrect approaches to describing people and all that sort of stuff. It becomes incredibly problematic and just really creepy, really odd. And it's like, but I think, so it's, I guess it's tonally incorrect. Oh no, it's like, tonally inappropriate. That's the right one. Tonally inappropriate commentators. But I think one of the other types of commentators that I don't necessarily gel with are commentators who clearly just aren't all there in terms of the wrestling know-how or kind of invested in it. And I mean, using a recent example, obviously we had I think it's Other Than Vic at Raw, who used to be on ESPN, got a position of lead announcer to start the night after WrestleMania. And it's like it's a voice and an authority that just didn't really work. So it just sounds so kind of like when you want something like a big authoritative voice about being able to confidently say these words, say move names, and be able to reel off characteristics about wrestler or so forth. It just didn't really gel, and it's like you can really tell the difference now, considering they've just brought in Jimmy Smith, who does color commentary for like mixed martial arts stuff, because then he's able to talk about the impact of moves and so forth, and be able to really sell the offense. So I think that's kind of like my pet peeve with commentators a little bit. It's just you kind of need to be knowledgeable, you kind of need to be invested, and you kind of need to feel like you have an authoritative voice to it. I mean, you have especially wrestling, you'll always have like the face commentator, then you'll probably have the heel commentator that's just always on the side of the hills and so forth. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. You do that role well, perfectly fine. It's just when you clearly aren't convincing in it, or you just can't convince, because then that takes up, because again, it's like wrestling commentary to a point helps sell the stories. It helps sells the offense and so forth. And you can see it works so well when you have Mauro Ranallo. Apologies if I butcher that name, especially when he was doing NXT, even doing Impact recently with Omega versus Swan, and just shouting the one-winged angel, like high pitch, even with Mamma Mia and stuff like that. Yes, it's a bit silly, but because the guy is so invested in it and so passionate about it and has the conviction to sell you that these moves are so fearsome and so deadly, so dangerous, and all that sort of stuff, you go with the commentary and you feel more invested in the wrestling match as a total, as a whole product. So yeah, that's why I am with commentators not clearly good at their roles.
Yeah, I'm coming from a unique position here because I have done some commentary before. I did it for the WXW promotion, West Side Extreme Wrestling in Germany for a few years, sort of on and off, as it were.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I was kind of very much a play-by-play guy, and Alan Cunahan, who was doing it with me as well for various shows and such, like he was also play-by-play. So there was that dynamic where having two play-by-play guys was a very interesting way of doing it. In hindsight, I wish I probably could have tried more color, but it was also a part of me where, quite frankly, if you've got to do color, it also, I feel like you can be a color commentator better if you've actually done wrestling. Yeah. Because the idea of a color commentator, from my brain and the way I'm wired, is that they're speaking from experience, and so they can use that experience to kind of, I say talk bad, or can put things across in a certain way. It's like when you watch football, for example, and you see someone like Gary Neville kind of add in a thing of like, why the heck did he do that? He should have just gone down there. He's actually talking from a place of experience. Why did he think that? Why did he let his concentration lapse? Whereas I actually felt bad if I ever tried to do that because I'm too nice. But commentary, but the way I always did play-by-play commentary, or the way I try to envisage it, is I am almost being the voice of a fan who's watching it. That's the way I treat it, which is a really weird balance to get. Sometimes I'll readily admit I got it right. I'm very sure sometimes I probably got that balance wrong. And when it comes to what you're saying and stuff, because it's an art, there's a thing. Not everything's going to gel. But when it comes to commentators that just don't gel with me, I had a name in my brain. It's totally gone now. That's not helpful at all. But but I think what you were saying, though, while I try and remember who I was going to say, is someone who is confident in what they're saying, or at least come across with an air of confidence. It's like, I'm sure I've shouted some stuff on commentary as well before, but that's because, especially when you're in a live crowd and you're there in the heat of the moment, you really you're just in the moment, and sometimes you just say things or shout things. You're like, why the heck did I say that? I don't care, but it's great, kind of thing. So yeah, honestly, the name's just gone, so I'm just going to butcher my own question now. Yeah, totally. That's not even me trying to cop out. I'm just trying to actually think of someone, but I can't. So there you go. If it comes back in my brain, I will endeavor to remember it as soon as I can.
Well, what you were saying about wrestlers, or basically people who've had experience of the sport or the actual profession, being able to talk about stuff, it does work. I mean, you look at Corey Graves, you look at when Samoa Joe had his stint on the WWE commentary, even Daniel Bryan when he was doing Cruiserweight Classic, and so forth. It's like they have a knowledge and they have an expertise that feels genuine. So it's not just like them saying, "Oh yeah, he's just too powerful," in that sort of way.
Okay, actually, I've got a name, but I want to quantify this by saying it's not that I don't like them. It's just their style of commentary. There's always just been something about it where I'm just like, this isn't for me, but I can make do. I'll put it this way. Like, I appreciate what they're doing, but it's just never gelled with me fully. Matt Stryker. That's the name I was thinking of.
Yeah. I mean, he did a bit of NXT. Did he do a bit of NXT commentary?
I think he did a bit of NXT. I think he's one of the current Impact lead announcers. He's done some New Japan stuff as well. Like, he's been around the block, for want of a better phrase. Yeah. But there is something about it where he is coming from a position of knowing what he knows, and also having been a wrestler as well. So he's very much, the way he does his style, in my opinion, he's very much coming from a place of authority in that he knows what he's talking about. But to me, there's just something about the way he delivers his lines that, again, isn't bad. It's just, for me personally, it doesn't click. I don't know what it is. Sometimes he can have a great match. Other times, it just doesn't click with me. That's, again, not me trying to cop out. It's just literally ones that don't gel. That's the one that doesn't gel. And that was the name I was trying to think of as well.
Fair enough.
So there we go. So, Iain, I'll tell you what. Let's do one more.
Okay.
We're going for a little bit. This is like an episode 0 type thing.
Yeah.
We've got plenty more questions for the future amongst whatever else we're going to talk about.
What did I say? I said 27, didn't I? Last time I said, yeah. Yes. So let's go for the one after that. Let's go for 28.
28. What kind of question is this that I wrote down? First person that comes to mind when I say the next word you hear from me.
All right.
Texas.
Steve Austin. There you go. Done. This is too quick. This is too quick. We may need to check.
I don't know why I wrote that question down. I mean, the first one I guess probably would have come to my mind would have been that or Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, it's
I don't know. Yeah,
how much more can we do on this question?
Just, I don't know. Again, that was clearly a point where I wrote that at like 3 a.m. or something.
Oh,
good job, past Jeremy. Good job. All right, you know what? Pick another one at random. I was going to pick one, but you know what? No, you pick another one.
No. You're host. You get to. It's your
right,
show.
I'm not looking at the thing.
You pick one last one. You pick the last one.
9. What do we have? Okay, here we go. Completely unintentional, but this will do. If we can do it, each of us, top 3 favorite wrestlers.
Now,
the way I'll quantify this is for us to actually pick a definitive top 3 is going to be really hard. But let's just pick 3 of our favorites. So it kind of probably sums up the kind of taste that we have.
Okay, I probably will go. I'd say my 3. I'll definitely take a legend pick.
Okay, yeah. Let's put some conditions on this. So 1 legend is required. I'm going to write this down as I go along.
So legend, a current wrestler who's active.
1 current active.
Yep, current active. And I don't know what we do about the 3rd one. Okay.
I was going to say something there that's a little bit morbid. I was going to say a wrestler who's no longer with us, because you said 1 current wrestler. I was thinking like 1 wrestler who's no longer with us.
No. I mean, yeah, it could be considered morbid, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, obviously, again, they're technically they have if they're well remembered after their passing, they are a legend in itself.
Yeah, fair point.
So I'm happy.
I'll tell you what. You said a current wrestler, someone who's retired. There you go.
Yeah, retired. Bona fide legend, active. I like that.
Okay, there you go. We got there. So, all right. Well, I'm going to pick a current active wrestler. So, first thing that comes to mind, I'm going to say is Edge, because technically now he's active. Otherwise, I would have called him retired.
He ticks all 3 boxes. Oh, not
literally.
Now.
There you go. Right. But yeah, like literally, I would definitely go with Edge, not just because of like his wrestling ability, just everything about him. Like I remember there was a point, must have been around 04, 05-ish, maybe, when he was having like the sort of he was in a relationship with Vicky Guerrero, but there was also a point where he's progressively every week on television was getting more scraggly looking. And it was kind of from an acting point of view, I always loved how really into it he was getting. It might have been when he was building up to the big Hell in a Cell match with Undertaker at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Around that point. But Edge is someone who I think has really managed to adapt to the times, like with what's around him. And just he's always come across as someone really credible, even from day one. So I'm going to go with Edge as my current person.
The current one, and it's only because I just really like the character. Or I just like the charisma on style, and it's Mox.
Yeah,
AEW. I mean, I was a fan when he was Dean Ambrose in WWE. He was one of my favorites when I got back into WWE. But now just watching him after leaving WWE and becoming this sort of it's like we have the unhinged lunatic fringe, and then just kind of going to another level of just being this total badass. Turning up at New Japan, because I watched some of the Climax tournament he was in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's like some of the early stuff I probably watched with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't watch it a lot, but I usually watch it when someone I know is involved in a match that I'm slightly intrigued about. And just seeing him take part in Climax and just having these stiff, brutal, just clear punch-a-thons for audiences and stuff like that. And then even as he moves over to AEW and he just feels like a man unleashed. It was just basically he was tethered in WWE, and now he's just unleashed and just fulfilling this sort of cool, badass sort of anti-hero role. Even teaming up at the moment with Eddie Kingston.
It's such a good team. They're so good on promos.
It's so natural. It's just so effortlessly cool when they're just talking about stuff and just riffing off each other. It's just wonderful. And I would say out of all I mean, don't get me wrong, there are other characters in wrestling at the moment that I really, really enjoy. I really like the Roman Reigns character. But obviously we're in kind of like the first year, whereas Mox has had a couple of years to kind of really get his teeth into AEW and the world wrestling scene. So yeah, for that reason,
would you like me to say something that may change your entire perception of how you watch Jon Moxley in the future?
Go on.
Now, this is, I very rarely think about this now, and you might not be able to unthink this when you've heard it. But every time he walks to the ring, he's got a bit of a swagger about him. You know, kind of, like the whole shoulder thing. Yeah. All I can picture is that's how Vince McMahon imagines he walks.
It's like, oh, I see a bit of myself in the lad. He's like,
no, literally, like, when you
walk on my arms out.
Literally, if you look up a gif of like the McMahon strut and just imagine that's how he probably thinks he walks when looking at Jon Moxley. To me, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of one of the other wrestlers at the moment that has a real good sort of movement and just have this strange sort of alluring but intriguing body movement to theirs, is Pentagon.
Yeah,
at the moment, because the way he's
so good.
Because of the way he just kind of slinks in like a lucha libre panther with the mask, and he just kind of slinks up when he does the zero fear hand gesture and stuff like that. It's just the way he moves. It's like this is weird, but I'm also oddly captivated by this man.
Honestly, like if I'd have thought about this for longer than just doing off the cuff, I probably might have said like Kenny Omega or Rey Fenix, because both of them are phenomenal, quite frankly. Like, I mean, Rey Fenix, like if he is not AEW champion at some point, or he is not holding an AEW championship within the next year, I will be gobsmacked, because I think actually ironically he's injured now, which is a real shame, but he is something special. If you've not seen it before, look up the singles match that he had with Nick Jackson. It would have been within the first 3 months of AEW Dynamite. They had a singles match randomly, I think, on an episode of Dynamite, and it is one of the best things you will see. It's ridiculous.
I know, but it's like in terms of characters, I lean a bit more to some of the AEW kind of presentation a little bit.
Definitely.
I mean, the thing is with WWE, it's like there are some, like I said, there are some characters that work incredibly well right now, but because of how I think this was described by one of the release wrestlers last week, like bipolar booking, where one week they'll do amazing things, they'll be unstoppable, and the next week they'll just lose in a roll up. It's like, how can you get invested in those sort of characters if you can't have conviction to them? But
AEW's like, I mean, I could talk about AEW for literally ages, because I love the promotion so much, and like pretty much everyone in that company I really, really like, and it's got such a great diverse lineup and offers something an actual alternative, like literally to WWE, and that's why I watch it religiously. But when it comes to legend wrestler, it's a big kettle of fish here I could choose from, but I have mentioned him already in the show, and so I'm going to stick with my guns here. I am just going to outright pick Bret Hart, one of my favorites of all time. Bret Hart is one of the reasons I got so invested in wrestling when I was talking about it at the start of the show. Like in that 90s period, like the whole Hart Foundation thing, I was so into it. Like British Bulldog being involved in that, I loved it. And also, I think what probably lent itself as well is that Bret Hart, to me, never came across as a heel in the late 90s and 97. I don't know why in hindsight, but there was that thing where it was the whole US-Canada thing. But for whatever reason, Bret Hart still felt like he was part of the UK, because he has such a strong affinity with it, following like SummerSlam 92 and whatnot, and everything with Bulldog. So you could never boo Bret Hart in the UK. It was pretty much impossible, unless you really wanted to be the one few people doing it. So Bret Hart, for me, the whole Montreal thing, it is what it is. It is what it is at this point, but he didn't deserve to have his career end the way it did. That is just my literal honest opinion. But Bret Hart is genuinely one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. If you go back and watch any Bret Hart match and just watch how he works at this point, and you actually think, man, look where wrestling. I say look where wrestling was and look where it is now, but he is an outlier in the wrestling of then, is the way to put it.
So legend. It's like, I don't necessarily how do you define legend? Is it someone who's definitely in the Hall of Fame, or?
I would say someone who, if they're not in the Hall of Fame, you regard Hall of Fame worthy, in your opinion.
Oh, it's like I've said Taker before, but I feel Taker's kind of like a very. I think Taker's.
He has actually. I mean, at this point, you could use him as your retired pick if you want.
I could. I kind of want to do some new perspectives, and I think someone. And again, it's a bit of a stretch, but they are kind of current at the moment. Someone who I think is going to go in straight away the moment they retire is probably going to be Randy Orton.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't get me wrong, it's like sometimes Randy Orton is not always the most charismatic wrestler. I mean, certain storylines he's been involved with, The Fiend, or the countless times he's faced John Cena, they've not been fully engaging. But there is something of just an art form of how he operates in the ring sometimes, and how he can effortlessly just move into moves and so forth. It's like you look at things like the vintage Orton draping DDT. It's like you don't associate any other person with that sort of move but him now. And it's like I remember seeing him do that at a house show a couple of years ago, and I think all I could just basically shout was vintage, because it's like because that move set is so ingrained now with Randy Orton. It's kind of like, oh, here comes vintage. And then obviously there's RKO, which by far I feel is
the Randy knockout.
The Randy knockout,
I always thought that's what it stood for, but
Or considering how Matt Riddle is trying to use it at the moment as part of RKO Bro, the Riddle knockout as well. Who knows?
I've got to say, like, that tag team of Randy Orton and Matt Riddle is the best pairing.
It's like it shouldn't work.
Between Ray and Dominic and RK Bro, as I'm affectionately calling them, like, it's. I love tag team wrestling so much, and also this is a random prediction because I think the next WWE pay-per-view is this weekend.
Next weekend is Hell in a Cell.
Yeah. So what's the bet? Because I'm pretty sure it's Father's Day both over here and in America. I predict, because it's WWE, Ray and Dominic will lose the belts. Because what else would happen on a day of celebrating family?
Well, the Usos and Roman Reigns will celebrate the fact. They'll probably beat the Usos will probably beat the Mysterios, and they'll celebrate as well. No, because at the moment they're kind of talking about doing Reigns versus Mysterio at Hell in a Cell for the Universal Championship.
I am so up for that.
I think it'll be fun. I mean, it's like part of me kind of going, I want more Cesaro, but I think Cesaro and Seth Rollins are going to Hell in a Cell at the moment because of the whole sort of, I beat you so much, you're not even on the show. Yeah, you're going to get locked in a cage, and it's going to be an epic masterclass of technicality wrestling and then some weapons. But going back to Orton, but yeah, it's like Orton and Riddle should not work as a team, but there is something engaging. I think it also helps that I think Orton really wants to do this storyline as well, or really wants to work with this wrestler. And you can sometimes tell when Orton is happy with what he is doing, he does some of the best stuff out there. It's like the whole build up for Mania last year with Edge. And the kind of like, I did this because I care about you, Edge. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see your family sad. So I'm going to injure you, and then I'm going to RKO your wife.
And then they built to the greatest match ever.
Backlash. That's the full name. It's like, I remember that being really dodgy, but then it's like really kind of nonsensical. But when I look back, it's like, that's actually not a bad. That wasn't a bad match. It was just kind of like a nice sort of, hey kids, this is how wrestling 10 years ago was kind of done. It was quite cool. But no, I very fondly remember Orton's early run when he was Legend Killer, when he just started with Evolution, and the matches he had with Foley. Yeah. The matches he had with Foley. I mean, Backlash 2000 with there's like
2000.
Oh, 2004. 2004.
It was after Mania 20. Yeah, sorry, I know dates like that. It's weird.
No, thank you for correcting me, because I know people would be shouting at me right now.
Christian,
and I watched the untold story of this one as well. Just the Backlash 2004 match, where it's just like yes, it's a traditional Mick Foley really hurts himself side of things, but it was just kind of like, this is the Randy Orton coming out party, because it's like he's like putting himself out. It's like thumbtacks and all that sort of stuff. It's like the facial reactions and stuff like that as well. There's a really good Untold on the network, where it charts like the feud between Orton and the Undertaker, which his dad gets involved in as well, Cowboy Bob Orton. And it's like it's quite interesting retrospective, considering where Orton was at the time as a person and as a wrestler. So it's like he wasn't at that time, he wasn't the most kind of professional person. He turned up to training bits completely late or just missed them, and so forth. And being able to kind of rise a bit above arrogance and hubris in a way, to become not just regarded as a real solid ring worker, but still kind of like a legend in his own right, in terms of how he conducts certain matches, how he's able to kind of have this move that kind of transcends a lot of things at the moment. I think that one move transcends, I think, wrestling at the moment. I mean, even in pop culture, especially like all the memes of just Randy Orton just turning up and RKOing Superman, or RKOing a grandma at random, or just it became like a mini move in like GTA 5 mods, where you can just run up and do an RKO on anyone. And it's yeah. I mean, if you're able to make a move that legendary, it's like it's like the celebration of doing the RKOs as well. So it's like doing the one on Evan Bourne, obviously Matt Sydal, during that last minute RKO as he comes down. That's cool. I still love the one he does at WrestleMania 31, when Rollins goes up. It's like Rollins goes up and he just comes down. It's like, that's the best RKO I've ever seen.
And it's moments like that. It's moments like that that make things like that special, though.
Yeah,
and make them memorable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I'd say legend at the moment. It's like, yeah, once Orton hangs up his boots, he's without a doubt getting into Hall of Fame straight away.
Speaking of hanging up boots, how's that for a segue? Retired wrestler. I'm going to go for a different pick here.
All right.
I don't know necessarily how, because every pick is different. So, by design. But I am going to say... Ironically, I can't say who I was going to say, because I realize they're still wrestling now. But
it's like, they're not retired. Wait, it's the given joke. No one stays retired for long in professional wrestling.
Exactly right. I could just say Terry Funk, but he'll probably come out of retirement next week.
It's like, you can say, Ric Flair, but he turns up on Impact and decides to elbow drop a jacket.
There you go. I am gonna go with, and this is assuming he is still retired at time of recording.
All right,
Goldberg. Because that WCW run in '98, this is specifically where I'm going with on this. That whole Goldberg thing about him building up the streak and whatnot up until he lost it to Kevin Nash. That time period, I was so invested, so invested in Bill Goldberg. Bless you. And ultimately as well, even coming back to more recent times, that match of Brock Lesnar that only went like a minute, I lost my mind when that match happened.
Well, that's Survivor Series, isn't it? That's a
Survivor Series match with Brock, that led to the Mania rematch.
Yeah, I remember watching that with Christian, and we were both going, "Oh, this will be a fun match where Brock will just win." 80 seconds later,
I mean,
what just happened?
Exactly right. And the thing is, I was trying to pick a WCW guy, and I almost kind of picked like a Kevin Nash or a Scott Hall, but I still associate them with WWF/WWE.
Yeah.
And in case you're curious who the other guy I was going to say that's now wrestling, it's Sting. That's what I was going to say originally for a WCW guy. Then I remembered a couple of weeks ago, he had a really freaking great match at Double or Nothing. Yeah. Really, really good. Real Estate Steve, as some people called him, had a really good match. But yeah, I'm going with Goldberg, but I'm doing it more from the perspective of his WCW time in like 97 through 98 when he was on the streak, because that time period is just amazing. Was amazing, rather. And like the night when he won the title from Hogan on that Nitro, I remember watching it after Cartoon Network ended. And because I wasn't smart at that point to wrestling and whatnot, I just watched it for what it was. And I only saw Nitro once a week. I didn't know what other talk there had been going around in the world and such. So I watched it and I loved every single minute of it. I have such great memories of Goldberg in WCW. Heck, if you want to see a really good Goldberg match from later on in WCW, Full Brawl 2000, watch him v Scott Steiner. It is really good. It's like one of those dark horse matches that people don't necessarily remember about, but it's really freaking good.
All right. So I've still got my retired one to go.
That's the thing. You're now trying to figure out who's still retired, because Christian's come back, Edge has come back, Sting's come back.
Of course, it's like I can go for partially because he's not technically retired, but he hasn't wrestled in like ages, and eventually he'll probably turn back up because money, and also celebrity and the power of celebrity makes this one a bit straightforward. I would say The Rock, to be honest, because because I think in terms of ignoring the fact that in terms of wrestlers trying to make a path for themselves outside the ring, and the fact that The Rock has transcended that in itself to being where he is, where basically he's the highest grossing movie star right now, runs tequila businesses, just it's like
he has Under Armour's Project Rock. I buy that clothing line because it's a good clothing line for tall people.
Yeah, and producing things like a Disney Plus series about the secret stories of ride attractions, even being like the producer of Fighting with My Family, which was a decent film. I didn't mind that. I thought it was quite good. I'm a bit kind of.
I still need to watch it. I still need to watch it. Come to think of it, I haven't watched it for any particular reason. Just haven't seen it. As
a film, it's good, but as knowing WWE history, you're kind of going, that's not NXT, because they kind of just go, oh yeah, it's just like some sort of training thing. It's like, no, that's not the NXT I remember. Boo, boo.
No, because I know what you want, Ian. You want game show NXT.
Yeah, no. Don't you put that on me.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna derail this for another couple of minutes. I'm gonna ask you a question. You can only have one or the other. All right.
All right.
Game show NXT or WWE's ECW?
WWE ECW.
Fair. Good. I'm glad you picked it.
Because it might not be perfect, but at least you have some wrestling going on there.
Honestly, WWE's ECW wasn't actually garbage. It was all right. It was a perfectly all right 45 minutes or so of a wrestling show.
On the Sci-Fi Channel.
I mean, over here it was Sky Sports, but look,
I'm sorry,
that segment involving the zombie, I still laugh at. If I need a pick-me-up occasionally, I literally will just go on YouTube and watch it.
Oh, can you imagine just in the room, Vince was going, we need some real extreme shit for this show. What do we got? No holds barred? Nah. Cage match? Nah. Zombie? Yes! Put it into my veins.
I mean, okay, you know what, Ian? I'm going to ask you another one now, not just to derail this further, but because I can. So here's your next difficult choice.
All right.
The Zombie or the Great Khali?
Great Khali.
Okay.
He's a lovable big giant wrestler. I mean, yeah, it's like they obviously tried to make him as threatening as possible, but he had a heart of gold in the end. And I think he still think he won the WWE Championship at Battleground after Jinder Mahal retained.
I mean, look, at that point, just let him have the belt.
Just let him have the belt. I think he was a world champion, wasn't he? Yeah, he was. He was a world champion.
Khali, because he held the belt up wrong the first time he held it.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he won it in a battle royal on SmackDown 4 days before a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
That seems familiar. It might, and then there was a show. No, wait, he wasn't champion then. There was a show where he was meant to face Big Show, but it was that point in WWE where people had elevated liver enzymes or something dumb like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know why I remember this kind of stuff. I just do. But yeah, what the heck are elevated liver enzymes? Who comes up with this?
It's like the liver just working too hard, going, I'm a real happy working liver. Got to keep working the liver. And they're probably, unless the wrestlers are drinking heavily, and hopefully, obviously, heavy drinking is not a good sign. Not good for the liver. But I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this.
I know. So you're retired. You're a retired wrestler.
Yeah,
then we're going to wrap it up. So
yeah, I was going
The Rock.
I will go with The Rock simply because he's one of the best. He's literally the best talker in the business. And basically, it's like anytime he turned up during the Attitude Era, it was like magic in a way in terms of promo stuff. And again, it's like he was at the right time. I can't imagine the Rock style or a character like The Rock having that sort of level of freedom in terms of promos. Now, I can't imagine that working. I really can't. But I think it was like a good trait of it. And again, it's like it's blockbuster matches. You don't necessarily get ring perfection. But when The Rock is like in your main event, you put your eyes on it a little bit, even with it's like once in a lifetime, twice in a lifetime with John Cena or so forth. You kind of didn't watch it because it was John Cena. You kind of watched it because, hey, it's The Rock. He's back and he's doing stuff in that sort of way.
So I'll be straight up with you. My favorite time period of The Rock is, I think it was circa 2003.
Hollywood Rock.
Hollywood Rock is the best.
Yes, because I think he just came off doing a film, or he was about to go off and do a film, and he was just kind of going, "Yeah, well, the Rock's busy here in Hollywood." I was watching a promo the other day where he's like, "I'm busy here in Hollywood," and he's just telling us like, "Yeah, I have tofu. I like tofu." All right, okay. So The Rock's going to pretend that I'm going to be listening. You say whatever you need to say, Hulk Hogan. You say about your vitamins. You say about your prayers and stuff like that, and then I'll come back when I'm ready. And action. But no, it's like there was always the fun at the end of every sort of Raw, because they do like the best of Raw Blu-ray, and that's when they have like the post Raw where they piss around for a little bit of fun, and most of the time it's just The Rock just kind of going, "Do you like pie? I like pie," and then Steve Austin will turn up and just stunner him to high hell, and he will just have the most over the top selling of it.
See, the Rock selling of a stunner, I always felt was something that was never fully appreciated.
Yeah, but it's basically you roll back, you put your hands down, and you push up. You do like a handstand jump, and then you fall over. I mean, it's like ultra selling is fun, but it's like sometimes it's like really weird. It's like Hogan Michaels at SummerSlam, where he did the leg drop, or he did something, and Michaels just gets up, runs around in a circle, and then falls.
At that point, Michaels was just like, "What is this?"
Well, obviously, because Michaels wanted to do a couple of matches, and Hogan went, "No, we'll just do one, and I win." So I can understand why he's upset, but it's just a beauty to behold.
Oh man! So, BunkaMania, everybody. We are going to gradually bring this thing to a close, because admittedly, we've gone far longer than we actually anticipated we would.
Well, this is the first. This is the first episode. Exactly. It's like a reboot episode. Get to know your hosts. We did it with Trivial Titans.
Exactly. So in terms of where we're going to be going with this, we're just going to talk about what we want, quite frankly, like stuff we like, be it current stuff, older stuff. We're just going to talk wrestling. But ultimately, the main part of this, as you can tell from what we've been talking about today, is just have a bit of fun. Have fun talking wrestling, maybe learn some stuff here and there, hear ridiculously random stories about the New Jersey transit system. You know, it could be anything could come up in conversation here on BunkaMania.
And now you're desperately trying to find me on the WWE network.
There you go.
There you go.
So Iain, I guess I will hand this bit to you for a second. If people want to get in touch with us, be it to correct us about something that we said, Christian, I'm expecting that to be you. And if we said something that maybe, we spoke out of turn, or if someone wants to suggest something for one of the topics we talked about, what is the best way for them to get hold of us?
Well, of course, they can email us at contact@bunkazilla.co.uk. Hopefully we'll have that somewhere appearing down here. I'm trying to find out where my camera is. Let's just say it's down here at the bottom. Down here at the bottom. Power of editing. Magic. So yes,
I thought you were doing like a little.
It's like
At least you didn't have mist though, otherwise you would have just ruined your camera.
just do the Triple H bottle in there.
or Tajiri if it's green mist,
Oh God, I just have to quickly talk about this. I watched NXT this morning, and Poppy was a musical guest that popped along to NXT. She's done a couple of songs for their main show.
Poppy's great.
Yeah, and basically she's meeting up with Regal and Triple H. Triple H in full-on dad mode with rolled up sleeves, button shirt, and he's going, "Oh, it's so great to hear you've done some great songs. What's next for Poppy?" And then Poppy takes out her phone and goes, "I'm going to release my album." And it's like Triple H has just met some sort of sorcerer. He's met some sort of sorcerer and goes, "Wait, you can just press a button and it's released?" Yeah.
Welcome to Twitter.
And it's like Triple H's mind was blown. And really Regal is sat there in the back just going, "What the fuck?"
I mean, to be fair, if William Regal was going to do anything, it should be that. By the way, for those of you watching this, if you see me adjusting a light, it's because I've realized it's really dark in here and it looks like one side of my face has just been lit up by the moon. So I'm trying to, as best as I can, rectify that.
Straight to the moon. Cameron Grimes.
There you go. There you go.
What? I was trying to think. Basically the best
Poppy, NXT, album, button.
And the best use of William Regal, as always, is he just turns up and shouts "War Games" and then runs off. It's basically it's the yearly tradition. The moment he shouts "War Games," you go, "Oh, it's all going on." Anyway, yes. So you can email us at contact@bunkazilla.co.uk. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch at Bunkazilla UK as well. We do stream weekly there, usually Mondays, Tuesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Schedule is kind of all over. There's a schedule in place, but we'll be looking at the schedule moving forward in the next couple of months. So we might be able to do a couple of BunkaManias to the Twitch channel. Who knows? It'll be nice to do something like that. But also, as well, we have our Patreon program, which we'll talk about now. Cue the ident. And as always with patrons, if you're on the Golden Monster tier, for £10 a month on Patreon, you get a personalized shout out during any of our podcast videos or even our own audio podcast, or even on stream. So a big thank you to our Golden Monster tier supporters, Harriet, aka Manga Girl, and Lyoko is great. Thank you so much for your ongoing support of the content that we produce here at Bunkazilla UK. Now, with Bunkazilla on Patreon, you get early access to shows like BunkaMania, like Film Raw, like Super Fortress, and so much more. You can support today for as little as £1.50. We've got the website on the screen right there. Patreon.com/BunkaZillaUK is the place to go, and you can find out all great information there. And who knows, we might have some exclusive content coming up there in the near future. But that's all my general.
You tease, Iain.
I'm a tease. I tease. But yes, that's my admin out of the way for this first episode. It's the usual admin. We always have fun with the admin. Anyway,
that is good fun. I'm sure. Let us know what you think, guys. If you think if you want more of this far more regularly, because in terms of frequency of us doing this, haven't really got a set schedule, to be quite honest, and lifting up behind the curtain. Yeah, maybe every couple of weeks, or just depending if something happens and we're like, we must talk. We must talk. We must talk the wrestling. Then
it's like, I mean, we can probably catch up in a couple of weeks after NXT Takeover and Hell in a Cell.
After NXT has been in your house.
Yes. I hope they don't make a mess. It would be terrible if they do.
I mean, look, someone's going to jump off the top of it because that's got to happen.
It's mostly going to be Io Shirai in some sort of outfit or some sort of thing. It's usually it was like a bin. One time, I can't remember the other things. It's just Io Shirai will just pop up out of nowhere and just jump. And it's like, oh, all right. And it's just fine because it's wrestling. Wrestling. Everyone loves it.
Yeah, because what's on the docket currently for upcoming pay-per-views? I'm just thinking what we might be talking about. There's NXT, like you say, there's Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
Dynamite. There is a Saturday Night Dynamite coming up soon because that's where Jungle Boy is going to challenge Kenny Omega for the belt. I cannot wait for that match.
I think there's another Impact special coming up soon, and that's Omega versus Moose. I think that's this weekend. I'm not sure. At time of recording. But yeah, lots of things coming up. I mean, there's like Fatal 5-Way in your house, where basically I think Karrion Kross is just going to murder a lot of people.
I mean, hey, also like New Japan's had some freaking fantastic news this week when it comes to who is now the IWGP champion, and Jeremy, who has followed Shingo Takagi a lot of the way through his journey of his career, if you like Dragon Gate and stuff. Jeremy was a very, very happy guy when he saw what had happened. Like Shingo Takagi being the champ it's just so damn cool. I mean, circumstances surrounding that may be discussed at another point as to who was previously champion and whatnot. But in terms of him now being the champion, I think pretty much everyone had written him off to win the belt. But him winning it, it's going to be incredible. He's such a long-time supporter, and seeing him get rewarded like that is so cool.
I think it's nice it sounds like it's something new, something fresh, something exciting, because as much as I can understand the appeal of Okada, and I've seen Okada in action, yes, I understand it too. But I think sometimes just having a bit of fresh blood with belts makes things more interesting, more exciting, that sort of things. If it's well earned, it's absolutely good fun.
Indeed.
Yes.
If you've not seen Shingo before, go watch him, or at least Google him and see a picture of his wonderful mullet. It's the best. It is. And on that note, everyone, thank you very much for checking out BunkaMania episode 0. We shall return because, whoa, BunkaMania, da 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 da.
No. So, Jeremy, we're cancelled.
Yes! I did it! I broke Iain. I broke Iain on
more than 2 hours. No.
I broke Iain on episode 0. Everyone, thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.
Stomp on, Monsters of Culture. Stomp on. Bye-bye.